Now, market experts say the perceived lack of continuity in terms of policy direction could impact investor confidence negatively, as business prefers certainty, and any possible change in policy direction could lead to jitters in the markets. Now, this after the 2024 national and provincial elections failed to produce a clear majority government leader. But how will the anticipated coalition government navigate conflicting party economic policies in the next 5 years? Well, to find out, we are joined by Dawie Roodt, the chief economist at the Efficient Group. Good to see you, Dawie. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Good morning to you.
What an election. I mean, you obviously did so many predictions and so many polls leading up to it to try and figure out how things are going to go. Did you imagine they were going to go this way?
No, certainly not. I thought that the ANC will lose big time, rightfully so. I think the ANC is being punished for what they've done the last couple of years. But I thought it's going to be somewhere between 45 and 50%, which would have allowed the ANC to form a coalition with the smaller opposition parties, and that would have resulted in more stability, I guess. This big lose of the ANC now opens the possibility of the ANC going into coalition with the far left political parties, and that's something that the financial markets certainly do not like. There was a time about 2 months ago when that was a possibility. The financial markets reacted quite negative to this. And then the last, say, 2 weeks or so, it appeared as if the ANC will get between 45 and 50%, what I thought. And we saw a nice appreciation in the exchange rate of the currency and the bond market. But I'm afraid the reality now is that the ANC is in a position where they basically have to choose between going either left or going right. And the financial markets are really jittery.
Well, let's talk about those markets. So obviously they are jittery, and I think that they didn't know which way to go during the elections and when the forecasts started coming out. And then on Friday, when the very clear pictures starting to emerge that there was not going to be a majority for the ruling ANC at all. What happened? Paint a picture for us as to how the markets were responding.
Well, the markets, I can tell you where the markets are at the moment. And what I'm very concerned about is the capital market. The rand is much weaker. We saw that. And the capital market is also significantly weaker. And what I've been doing, I've been reading what the international press have to say about South Africa. And it's very clear, and I can read you some of the headlines of the international press, and it's very clear that they're also very, very concerned about South Africa. This is the Financial Times saying South Africa on the precipice. The Economist, a very important international newspaper, South Africa stands on the brink of salvation or catastrophe. So that is what the financial markets are saying. So what is going to happen? I think there are two possibilities. I think before I just want to make a very important point, is that South Africa's financial markets are hugely undervalued. So if there's a good news story here, we can see very nice things happening on the financial markets in the short term. I won't be surprised if the rand can easily go to 17 or 17.5 to the US dollar. Of course, if there's the right decision in terms of a coalition partner for the ANC. And it's quite easy that the oil share index can also gain 10, 20, even 30%, and even the bond market. But if there's a bad news coalition story, we can see the rand coming under even more pressure. We can see the bond market especially weakening quite significantly in the equity markets as well. So those are the two options that are likely to happen in the next week or so. Of course, it doesn't matter which one of these options happen. The reality is the South African economy is not going to grow in the medium longer term because there are major structural adjustments that we need to make in order to get this economy to grow. But I'm afraid if there's a leftish coalition in South Africa, those structural adjustments are unlikely to be made, and it's unlikely for the economy to grow over the longer term. The right kind of combination of policies and the right coalition could eventually lead to stronger economic growth. But in the short term, the economy will continue to suffer for a number of reasons. And one obvious reason is simply that we do not have enough electricity.
So let me ask you, I mean, we'll get to that now, but let me ask you, I mean, you made a comment that the markets and the economy won't grow and international investors won't like it if the ANC partners with the more left parties. Why? Perhaps make us understand why they don't like that.
Obviously because of the policies. The leftist political parties, some of them say they don't want the constitution anymore. Some of them say they want to expropriate all assets in South Africa. They want to nationalize the mines. They want to nationalize the banks. Now, Who in his right mind would want to invest in an asset that's going to be nationalized? So those are some of the reasons. And of course, those leftish political parties, they want more central control. They want more of what is called things like, for example, a developmental state. They are leftish, they are socialist. And all those kind of policies are not good for the economy and are certainly not good for the macroeconomic growth. On the other hand, less of that is probably going to be better for the financial markets and better for the economy overall. But those are the reasons. It's simply a choice between more state intervention or less state intervention in the economy. More state intervention is not good for the economy, and it's not good for the financial markets, and the opposite is true for less state intervention. And maybe I'll just make a comment that I'm very concerned about. If you look at where we were 30 years ago and where we are today, we are pretty much politically speaking on the same place, because we've got roughly 2/3 of the population voting for the ANC or its offshoots, either the MK or the EFF. And that's the same where we were 30 years ago. But that is not aligned to our economic reality. And our economic reality requires less of what we've seen the last 30 years, in fact. We need less state intervention. We need more protection for private property rights. We need a freer economy. So that is something fundamentally that I'm concerned about. So that inevitably means that the ANC itself need to split in two. And let's call it the Cyril Ramaphosa faction or the Guedemantash faction, if you like. But we need, if we want to save this economy, we need the right faction of the ANC going with the right opposition parties.
Well, it appears that this is exactly what is happening. I mean, you can see exactly what's happened with the MK party and that moving and into a new direction and blowing the lights out in these elections. They honestly have. And I mean, if we have to take a case in point in KwaZulu-Natal, they really have got, I mean, they didn't get the outright majority, but with the percentage that they've got, they are certainly going to be in power in a massive province that has got a lot of our shipping ports in there, a lot of transport. I mean, KwaZulu-Natal is a very important province. So we're going to see how they work, and certainly in coalitions as well. What are your expectations there? Because you've seen or have we seen what the MK party stand for and what they plan on doing to the economy?
We don't really know what they stand for. What I've heard is that they don't like their constitution. What I've heard is they want more state intervention. But we don't really know because we don't understand the leadership of the MK party. But here is something else that I'm concerned about. There are, and we've spoken about this many times before, we've got huge dependency on the state. We've got very high levels of unemployment and poverty in South Africa. And if we've got the wrong political party in charge, we're probably going to get, or the wrong coalition in charge, we're going to have more of that. In the meantime, we have a huge support for the MK party and KZN, for example. It is possible, theoretically at least, but it's possible for all the other political parties to come together and to prevent the MK party from being part in KZN, as an example. But will they accept that? Will that lead to something? Could that eventually lead to something really bad, like violence, for example? Those are the sort of things that I'm extremely concerned about. It's not only in KZN, but the reality is all over South Africa, the levels of absolute poverty is going up, and we know about unemployment levels. We are sitting at a very difficult position in South Africa, and it is so important for all our leaders to realize this. And I must also say, the ANC, the way that they're managing or handling this defeat, I think they're saying the right things, and the same goes for most of the other political parties. Not all of them, but it seems to me as if our senior political leaders realize that South Africa is at the fork in the road of history, and that we have to make sure that we come together and make sure that we save the country and make sure that all of this does not lead to instability in the country.
Well, I mean, we certainly are at a very, very big fork in the road here for South Africa. But so we've spoken slightly about the EFF. I want to touch on them again, but we haven't spoken about a DA partnership as yet with the ANC. What about them? Will they compromise on the ANC's national health insurance bill, for instance? Also on grants, because you speak about how dependent so many South Africans are on the state, and of course what will happen to the grants. and the health and all of the other things that the president very, very quickly signed in. And he's been signing left, right and centre here before, of course. I mean, he found his pen. I don't know where it was hiding, but he found it, and he's been furiously signing things. But talk to us about this partnership and how they view things.
A partnership with the EFF, is that?
No, the DA and the ANC.
The DA. All right. Yes. Well, the president, obviously, I mean, that was a lot of political populism by signing the NHI and signing and all these sort of finding his pen and all that. That was just cheap politics. Let's be honest about this. The reality is the NHI is not going to happen, and we've spoken about that for various reasons. There simply isn't money. But I think one of the requirements for the DA will be to at least put the NHI on hold. I think another requirement of the DA will be eventually, not immediately, and that is for the president to start with a clean-up action within the ANC. There are just too many people very close to him that are mentioned in the Zondo Commission, for example. And I think that is going to be the real test. Will the president be able to start cleaning up the ANC? And I do believe that this move to the left of the ANC in recent years, and especially recently, that will be halted. And I think the president realized now that the signing of the NHI, although populist, was not really so popular with the people in the country. So I think there will be a slight move to the right. I think it will be dangerous for the DA to put too much pressure on the ANC, because that could eventually topple the president himself. And if there's one single individual that is crucial to South Africa today, and I don't think he's a strong leader, it is the president. The president really is the person, is that individual that can keep everything together here and make the crucial and the right decision at the moment. In the meantime, his position in the ANC is not so secure. And I think all of us, well, let's say the DA and some other political parties to the right of the ANC, I think they also realize the importance of the president at the moment. And for that reason, I don't think they will put too much pressure on the ANC to move and to change too many policies at this stage, at least yet.
Well, I suppose it's a good point to end off on, because I know you have to leave us at 10:02,
Yeah.
but the President Cyril Ramaphosa, there's still no guarantees that he's the man that's going to stay, even though we heard the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, saying that Ramaphosa is going nowhere. We saw the President speaking last night. He seemed very confident, calm, cool, still had a sense of humor. He kind of looked good last night. I mean, if I can give my own opinion, maybe everyone else has their own opinion. If he stays, if he goes, what happens if he goes? I mean, what does South Africa look like?
If he goes, it really depends who's going to take over. If it's Paul Masachile, which is the obvious next in line, then I'm afraid we are in for some serious trouble in South Africa. That will be a move to the left. Even if Gwede Mantashe is another individual, that will be a move to the left, or somebody around, somebody like that. If he goes and it's somebody that brings somebody in from the outside, there could be, who knows, one of the previous leaders. Could be a good news story, but I'm afraid if he goes, chances are things will go wrong for South Africa. So I think the president at this stage is crucially important. But having said that, losing 17% for your political party, under normal circumstances, a political leader will fall in his sword.